The Galactic Council's emergency session had all the ceremonial gravitas of a funeral, which was appropriate considering they were discussing the most catastrophically dangerous exhibit in the history of interstellar tourism. The Deathworld Pavilion at Zephyrian Prime's Grand Zoological Gardens had been sealed for 47 standard cycles, its entrance guarded by enough warning signs to wallpaper a small moon. "The statistics are undeniable," wheezed Councillor Blipnox, his tentacles gesticulating wildly as holographic death tallies floated around the chamber. 312 species have attempted entry. 312 species have been found cowering in corners, babbling about the horror, the absolute horror. The exhibit in question was a faithful recreation of what the galaxy's xenobiologists had classified as the most lethally hostile planet ever discovered, a blue-green nightmare called Earth. The pavilion contained specimens of the planet's most terrifying predators, weather systems that could kill you in 17 different ways, and plant life that seemed to exist solely to cause suffering. "The Vulcarians lasted 4 minutes, continued Blipnox, consulting his datapad with the enthusiasm of someone reading obituaries. "The Crystalline Collective managed 6 minutes before their formations literally shattered from fear. And the Zen Masters of Proxima, they achieved enlightenment all right, the enlightenment that they needed to get the hell out." What made it worse was that the exhibit wasn't even complete. The zoo's researchers had been forced to water down the lethality by approximately 90% just to prevent immediate cardiac arrest among visitors. The friendly version of Earth still contained bears that could crush titanium, snakes that could kill you by looking at you wrong, and something called Australia that defied all known laws of physics and common sense. "We should demolish it," suggested Councillor Zep-Zep, his usually cheerful demeanor dampened by the grim statistics. "Cut our losses and build something sensible, like a nice peaceful exhibit about the gas giants of Nebula 7. But fate, as it often does, had other plans. Plans that arrived in the form of a battered cargo ship broadcasting on emergency frequencies, carrying the first human delegation to ever reach Zephyrian Prime. Captain Sarah Mitchell stepped off the transport with the casual confidence of someone who had just survived a 3-month journey through space in what was essentially a flying tin held together by duct tape and sheer bloody-mindedness. Behind her came her crew. Dr. James Kepler, a xenobiologist who collected dangerous species the way others collected stamps. Engineer Rosa Santos, who could fix anything with enough coffee and creative swearing. And Communications Officer Tommy Chen, who had somehow managed to learn 47 alien languages during the journey. "Welcome to Zephyrian Prime," announced the greeting committee, a collection of beings that looked like they had been designed by committee and assembled by someone with a sense of humor. "We are honored to receive the first representatives of, the lead greeter consulted his notes. "Humans? Humans? How exactly do you pronounce that?" "However you want," said Sarah with a grin. "We're not picky. Now we heard you've got some sort of zoo here. We love zoos." The greeters exchanged glances that somehow managed to convey concern across multiple species. "Well, yes, we do have a zoological facility, but perhaps you would prefer our peaceful exhibits. We have a lovely butterfly garden, some very docile herbivores, and a meditation chamber that—" "Boring," interrupted Tommy, his enthusiasm undimmed by the interstellar journey. "We want to see the dangerous stuff. What's the most exciting thing you've got?" "Well," said the lead greeter hesitantly, "there is the Deathworld Pavilion, but it's closed to the public. Far too dangerous. We've had to seal it off after multiple incidents of visitors requiring psychological counseling." The human's eyes lit up with an intensity that made the greeters take several steps backward. "Deathworld?" asked Dr. Kepler, practically vibrating with excitement. "What kind of Deathworld?" "A terrible place," the greeter replied, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The most hostile environment we've ever catalogued. Predators that hunt in packs, weather that can freeze you solid or melt you into puddle, and plants that actively try to kill you. It's based on detailed scans of a planet called, let me check my notes, Earth. The silence that followed was broken by the sound of Rosa Santos laughing so hard she had to lean against the transport for support. "You made a zoo exhibit of Earth?" she gasped between fits of laughter. "Our Earth? The one we're from? You're from where?" The greeter's voice cracked across 3 octaves. "Earth," said Sarah cheerfully. "You know, third rock from the sun, mostly harmless except for the occasional apocalypse or extinction event. Nice place if you can survive the wildlife." The welcoming committee was now backing away with the coordinated precision of a well-rehearsed dance troupe. "You're from the Deathworld?" "Deathworld?" Tommy scratched his head. "I mean, it's got its moments, but we call it home. Can we see this exhibit? I'm curious how you folks interpreted our little blue marble." What followed was an emergency session that made the Galactic Council's previous meetings look like tea parties. The discovery that humans were not only from the legendary Deathworld, but seemed to regard it as a pleasant neighborhood, had triggered what historians would later call the Great Cosmic Freakout of 2387. "They're from there!" Councillor Blipnox was now speaking entirely in capital letters. "The place that gave 312 species nightmares. They're from the actual Death Planet. Technically," Dr. Kepler had been invited to address the council, "Earth isn't really a death world. It's more of a vigorous world. Sure, we've got some challenging wildlife, but most of it's quite manageable once you know what you're doing." "Challenging?" Blipnox's tentacles were now tied in knots. "Your planet has creatures that can kill you with their urine." "Well, yes, but that's just the box jellyfish," Dr. Kepler replied reasonably. "And they're mostly in Australia. We just avoid swimming there during certain seasons." "It has seasons of death?" No, just seasons when the box jellyfish are more active. Australia's got loads of things that can kill you. Drop bears, huntsman spiders, crocodiles, snakes, sharks, blue-ringed octopuses, cone snails, stonefish, irukandji jellyfish and cassowaries. Oh, and the plants. Wait till you hear about the gimpy tree. The council chamber had gone silent, except for the sound of several species quietly weeping. "But here's the thing," Dr. Kepler continued, warming to his subject. "Most of these creatures aren't actually out to get you. They're just doing their thing. It's only dangerous if you're silly about it." "Silly?" Councillor Zep had reached a pitch that only dolphins could hear. "We have documented cases of visitors being traumatized by the sound of your rainforest exhibit." "Ah, that would be the bird calls," nodded Dr. Kepler. "Probably the lyrebirds. They can imitate anything. Chainsaws, car alarms, other birds, human speech. Quite clever, really. Though I suppose if you didn't know what you were listening to, it might be a bit startling." "Startling?" The councillor's voice was now a whisper. 3 crystalline collective members spontaneously shattered when they heard what they described as the screams of the damned coming from the trees. "Oh, that was probably the kookaburras," Tommy chimed in helpfully. "They laugh, it's their call. Bit unsettling if you're not used to it, I suppose." The humans were eventually escorted to the Deathworld Pavilion under heavy guard, though the guards seemed more interested in protecting the galaxy from the humans than protecting the humans from the exhibit. The pavilion itself was an impressive structure, a dome roughly the size of a small city, containing what the designers had proudly called the most terrifying ecosystem ever assembled. Warning signs in 247 languages covered every surface, and the entrance was sealed with enough locks to secure a galactic treasury. "Right," said Chief Curator Flibble, a being that looked like someone had crossed a hamster with a filing cabinet. "Before we open this, you should know that we've had to significantly reduce the lethality of the exhibit. The original specifications would have killed most visitors within minutes." "How significantly?" asked Sarah. "Approximately 90%. Rosa burst into laughter again. "You made a safe version of Earth? That's like making a gentle version of a nuclear explosion." "We had to," Flibble protested. The original research data was clearly exaggerated. No world could actually support the kind of life forms described in the reports. We assumed there had been some sort of translation error. What kind of life forms? Dr. Kepler asked curiously. Flibble consulted his notes. Creatures that can survive in the vacuum of space, temperatures that would melt most known metals, and radiation levels that would sterilize entire planets. Plus, something called tardigrades that apparently cannot be killed by anything short of a supernova. "Oh, water bears!" Tommy exclaimed. "Yeah, they're pretty tough. Cute little things, though. Look like tiny eight-legged pandas." "Cute!" Flibble's filing cabinet section started rattling. "They're indestructible." "Well, not completely indestructible," Dr. Kepler corrected. "You can kill them with enough heat, or by completely dehydrating them for several decades, though they do tend to come back to life if you add water later." "They resurrect?" "More like rehydrate. Think of them as nature's instant soup." The locks on the pavilion entrance began cycling through their sequences, each one producing a sound like a bank vault opening. The final lock was roughly the size of a small car and required 3 different keys turned simultaneously. "Last chance to reconsider," Flibble said desperately. "The psychological support staff is standing by." "We'll be fine," Sarah assured him. "How bad could it be?" The doors opened, and Earth's greatest hits began their performance. The first thing that hit them was the sound, a cacophony of bird calls, insect buzzing, and what sounded like a distant thunderstorm. The second thing was the smell, rich, loamy earth, mixed with the green scent of growing things and a hint of something that might have been decomposing vegetation. "Oh, wow!" Rosa breathed, stepping into what appeared to be a perfectly ordinary forest. They really did their homework. The guide team followed at a safe distance, wearing what appeared to be full hazmat suits with extra armor plating. Flibble's voice came through a heavily filtered communication system. "That's the temperate forest section. It contains 17 different species of predators, 43 varieties of poisonous plants, and weather systems that can kill you in multiple ways. It's beautiful." Dr. Kepler was already examining the plants with the enthusiasm of a kid in a candy store. "Look at these ferns, and is that a real oak tree? The detail work is incredible." "Real?" Flibble's voice cracked. "It's all real. We couldn't simulate the lethality, so we had to import actual specimens." "You brought real Earth plants and animals here?" Sarah asked, suddenly more alert. "Well, yes, but we've contained them in a completely secure environment with multiple fail-safes and—" His explanation was cut short by the sound of something large moving through the underbrush, something that was making a low, rumbling sound that seemed to come from deep in its chest. "Oh, fantastic!" Dr. Kepler was practically bouncing with excitement. "What did you bring for the large predators?" We managed to acquire a small population of what the research data called bears. But don't worry, they're behind a force field that could stop a battle cruiser." The rumbling sound was getting closer, and it was becoming clear that whatever was making it was not small. "What kind of bears?" Tommy asked, though his grin suggested he already knew the answer. "The files just said Ursus arctos horribilis," Flibble replied. "We assumed the horribilis part was some sort of scientific designation." "Grizzly bears," Sarah translated, her own grin widening. "Oh, this is going to be fun." What emerged from the underbrush was indeed a grizzly bear, though it was clear that several months of zoo life had not diminished its impressive presence. It was roughly the size of a small spacecraft and moved with the casual confidence of something that had never met a problem it couldn't solve by eating it. The bear looked at the humans with what appeared to be mild interest, then at the guide team in their protective suits with what appeared to be amusement, and finally at the force field with what appeared to be professional curiosity. "The force field is rated for 12 tons of impact force," Flibble said proudly. "There's no way any Earth creature could—" The bear reached out with one massive paw and gently tapped the force field. There was a brief flicker, a sound like an electrical short, and then nothing. That's not possible," Flibble whispered. "Oh, that's just Murphy's Law," Rosa said cheerfully. "Anything that can go wrong will go wrong, usually at the worst possible moment." D, the bear, having apparently decided that the force field was more of a suggestion than a barrier, began to walk toward the group with the unhurried pace of something that had all the time in the world. "Run!" Flibble screamed, his voice reaching frequencies that made the universal translator give up and start producing random static. The guide team scattered in every direction, their protective suits making them look like a group of very small, very scared robots. Flibble himself managed to achieve what appeared to be a new land speed record for filing cabinets. The humans, meanwhile, stood their ground. "Hey there, big guy," Sarah said calmly, reaching slowly into her backpack. "You're a long way from home, aren't you?" The bear stopped and regarded her with the patient expression of someone waiting for an explanation. "I bet you're hungry," she continued, pulling out what appeared to be a sandwich wrapped in foil. "You probably haven't had decent food in months." "Sarah," Dr. Kepler said quietly, "that's a grizzly bear. They're apex predators. They can run 30 miles per hour, climb trees, and have a bite force that can crush a bowling ball." "I know," Sarah replied, unwrapping the sandwich. "I'm from Alaska. We have bears there too." She tossed the sandwich toward the bear, who caught it with surprising delicacy and examined it with the serious attention of a food critic. That's peanut butter and jelly," Tommy observed. "Bears love peanut butter," Sarah explained, "and this one's probably sick of whatever processed food they've been feeding him." The bear took a careful bite, chewed thoughtfully, and then sat down heavily. It was the sitting posture of a creature that had just discovered something wonderful and wanted to savor the experience. "He likes it," Dr. Kepler said unnecessarily. "Of course he likes it," Sarah replied. "It's proper food. I bet they've been feeding him some sort of nutritionally balanced zoo kibble that tastes like cardboard." The bear finished the sandwich with the methodical precision of someone who had been waiting months for a decent meal. Then it looked at Sarah with what appeared to be hopeful expectation. "Sorry, big guy," she said, showing him her empty hands. "That was my lunch. But I'll bring you something better next time." "Doo-dee-dee," the bear nodded, a gesture that seemed to transcend species barriers, and then wandered back into the underbrush with the satisfied air of someone who had just had a pleasant social interaction. "That was impossible!" Flibble's voice came from somewhere behind a tree. "Earth predators are supposed to be mindlessly aggressive killing machines." "Who told you that?" Dr. Kepler asked, genuinely curious. "The research data. Every report describes them as engines of destruction, living weapons designed by evolution to cause maximum carnage." "Well, they can be dangerous," Sarah admitted, "but they're not monsters. They're just animals trying to make a living. Most of them would rather avoid a fight if they can." "But the reports!" Flibble emerged from his hiding spot, his filing cabinet section still rattling nervously. "Creatures that hunt in coordinated packs, that can track prey across vast distances, that never give up once they've selected a target." "That sounds like wolves," Tommy said. "But again, they're not evil. They're just doing what wolves do. They hunt, they raise their families, they play with their pups. It's all quite ordinary, really." The group continued deeper into the exhibit, past sections labelled temperate rainforest, desert ecosystem, and tropical wetlands. Each area was populated with Earth's greatest hits, snakes that could kill you with a look, spiders the size of dinner plates, and plants that seemed to exist solely to cause suffering. "This is the Australia section," Flibble announced as they approached an area that seemed to radiate menace. "We've had to seal it off completely. The psychological impact was too severe." "No. What did you put in there?" Rosa asked, though her tone suggested she already knew she was going to find the answer hilarious. "Everything," Flibble replied. "Every creature from the Australian continent." The research data suggested it was some sort of concentrated death zone where evolution had gone completely insane. Well, that's not entirely inaccurate, Dr. Kepler admitted. Australia is a bit special. They peered through the reinforced viewing windows into what appeared to be a perfectly ordinary bit of Australian bush. It looked peaceful, almost boring, until you noticed the subtle signs. The way the birds seemed to be watching everything with predatory interest. The fact that every plant looked like it was waiting for something to come within reach. And the general atmosphere of barely contained lethality. It looks so normal, Tommy observed. That's the problem, Sarah replied. In Australia, everything that looks harmless is probably deadly, and everything that looks deadly is definitely deadly. It's like nature's practical joke. As if summoned by her words, a cassowary stepped into view. It was roughly the size of a human, covered in black feathers that seemed to absorb light and topped with a helmet-like casque that made it look like it was wearing armor. It looked at the viewing window with the calculating stare of something that was wondering whether the glass was edible. "That's a cassowary," Dr. Kepler said quietly. "They're known as the world's most dangerous bird." "How dangerous can a bird be?" Flibble asked, though his voice suggested he really didn't want to know the answer. "They can run 30 miles per hour, jump 5 feet high, and they have claws that can slice through bone," Sarah replied. "Plus, they're extremely territorial and have been known to attack humans without provocation." "Attack humans?" Flibble's filing cabinet sections were now rattling so hard they sounded like a percussion section. "With what weapons?" "They are the weapon," Tommy explained. "Evolution basically took a velociraptor and taught it to fly. Well, not fly exactly, but move really, really fast." The cassowary tilted its head, studying the group with one black eye. Then it did something that made everyone take a step back. It smiled. Not a human smile, but the unmistakable expression of a creature that had just spotted something interesting. "It's looking at us," Dr. Kepler observed. "It's calculating," Flibble corrected, his voice reaching new heights of panic. "It's trying to figure out how to get through the barrier." The cassowary began to walk toward the viewing window with the measured pace of something that had all the time in the world. Its claws made soft clicking sounds on the ground, and its head bobbed slightly with each step. "Should we be concerned?" Rosa asked, though she sounded more amused than worried. "The barriers are rated for—" Flibble began, then stopped. "Actually, after what happened with the bear, I'm not sure I trust the barriers anymore." The cassowary reached the viewing window and began to examine it with the methodical attention of a professional safecracker. It tapped the glass with one claw, pressed its beak against the surface, and then stood back as if considering its options. "It's problem-solving," Dr. Kepler said, fascinated. "Look at that intelligence. It's not just a mindless killer, it's actually thinking through the situation." "Thinking!" Flibble's voice cracked. "It's not supposed to be thinking, it's supposed to be a mindless engine of destruction." "Who told you Earth animals were mindless?" Sarah asked. "Most of them are quite intelligent. They have to be, to survive in the environments they live in." The cassowary apparently reached a conclusion about the viewing window because it suddenly lost interest and wandered away with the air of someone who had just filed something under problems to solve later. "It's gone," Flibble said, relief evident in his voice. "It's not gone," Dr. Kepler corrected. "It's just moved to a different location, probably looking for a better angle of attack." "Attack? It's planning an attack." "Well, probably not an attack exactly," Sarah said. "More like an investigation. Cassowaries are curious creatures. It's probably just wondering what we are." They continued through the exhibit, past sections containing everything from coral reefs to mountain ecosystems. Each area was populated with Earth's most impressive specimens, and each one seemed to regard the humans with a mixture of curiosity and what appeared to be recognition. "They know you're from their world," Flibble observed, his voice filled with wonder and terror. "They can sense it somehow." "Maybe," Dr. Kepler agreed, "or maybe they're just responding to our body language. We're not afraid of them, so they're not seeing us as either prey or threat." "Not afraid," Flibble's filing cabinet sections rattled in disbelief. How can you not be afraid? These creatures have been the stuff of nightmares for 312 species. Because they're not nightmares, Rosa explained. They're just neighbors. We grew up with them. They're part of our world. The final section of the exhibit was labeled Oceanic Ecosystem, and it contained what appeared to be a section of Earth's ocean, complete with coral reefs, kelp forests, and a variety of marine life that seemed to regard the visitors with the casual interest of locals watching tourists. This is where we've had the most problems, Flibble explained. The aquatic predators seem to be particularly disturbing to visitors. Oh, what kind of aquatic predators? Tommy asked, though he was already scanning the water with the excitement of someone expecting to see old friends. Sharks, Flibble replied, specifically great whites. We managed to acquire a small population, but they've been problematic. Problematic how? Sarah asked. They keep trying to communicate with the visitors. Communicate? Dr. Kepler looked fascinated. How? They swim up to the viewing windows and just stare for hours. With those black eyes, it's extremely unsettling. As if summoned by the conversation, a great white shark glided into view. It was roughly the size of a small submarine, moving with the effortless grace of something that had been designed by evolution to be perfect at exactly one thing. The shark approached the viewing window and stopped, regarding the group with what appeared to be mild interest. Its black eyes seemed to focus on each human in turn, as if it was taking inventory. That's a beautiful animal, Dr. Kepler breathed. Look at that perfect design. Millions of years of evolution, and they got it right the first time. It's terrifying, Flibble corrected. It's a living torpedo designed to kill anything that moves. It's really not, Sarah said, studying the shark with professional interest. Sharks are actually quite cautious. They'd much rather avoid a confrontation than risk injury. The shark seemed to be listening to the conversation. Its head tilted slightly, as if it was trying to make sense of the sounds coming from the other side of the glass. It's eavesdropping, Tommy observed with delight. Sharks can't eavesdrop, Flibble protested. They don't have the cognitive capacity for complex behavior. They can hear, Dr. Kepler replied, and they're much more intelligent than most people give them credit for. Some species show problem-solving abilities, social learning, and even what appears to be personality. Personality? Flibble's voice was approaching frequencies that only bats could hear. Oh yes, Sarah agreed. Each one is different. Some are curious, some are cautious, some are playful. They're individuals, not just biological machines. The shark seemed to approve of this assessment, because it began to move in what appeared to be a slow, graceful dance. It rolled gently, showing its pale belly, then righted itself and swam in a wide circle before returning to the viewing window. It's showing off, Rosa said, grinning. Look at that. It's actually performing for us. Performing. Flibble was now speaking in a whisper. Earth predators don't perform. They kill, they hunt, they destroy, they don't dance. This one does, Tommy replied, watching the shark's graceful movements with obvious appreciation. And it's doing a damn good job of it. The shark completed its performance and returned to the viewing window, where it hung motionless in the water, studying the humans with what appeared to be expectant interest. I think it wants applause, Dr. Kepler observed. Without hesitation, all 4 humans began to clap. The sound was muffled by the water, but the shark seemed to understand the gesture, because it performed what could only be described as a bow before swimming away with obvious satisfaction. That was impossible. Flibble's voice had gone beyond panic and into the realm of existential crisis. Earth predators are supposed to be mindless killing machines. They're not supposed to be artists. Who told you they were mindless? Sarah asked gently. Most of Earth's predators are highly intelligent. They have to be to survive in a competitive environment. But the reports, the research data, Every single study describes them as engines of destruction, living weapons designed by evolution to cause maximum carnage. Those reports were probably written by people who had never actually encountered Earth wildlife, Dr. Kepler suggested. Or maybe they were based on military assessments rather than biological observations. Military assessments. Flibble's filing cabinet sections had stopped rattling, which was somehow more disturbing than when they had been making noise. Well, yes, Rosa said. If you're trying to evaluate Earth from a military perspective, you'd focus on the dangerous aspects, but that's not the whole picture. It's like describing humans by only mentioning our capacity for warfare. But humans are dangerous, Flibble protested. The military reports describe you as the most lethal species in known space. We can be dangerous, Sarah admitted, but we're not only dangerous. We're also curious, creative, compassionate, and occasionally quite silly, just like every other species on Earth. The group completed their tour of the exhibit, having encountered everything from venomous snakes to giant spiders to plants that could digest small animals. Each encounter had followed the same pattern. Initial caution from the Earth creatures, recognition of the humans as fellow natives, and then what appeared to be genuine pleasure at meeting someone from home. This is unprecedented, Flibble said as they returned to the entrance. In 312 attempts, no species has ever completed the full tour without requiring psychological support. That's because we're not visitors, Dr. Kepler explained. We're neighbors. These creatures recognize us as part of their world. But how is that possible? You're clearly intelligent beings, not mindless animals. Who said intelligence and being natural were mutually exclusive? Tommy asked. Intelligence is just another survival strategy. It evolved on Earth just like everything else. As they prepared to leave the exhibit, Sarah turned to Flibble with a serious expression. Can I ask you something? Why did you build this place? To educate the galaxy about the most dangerous world ever discovered, Flibble replied. To show them what evolution can produce when it goes completely insane. But that's not what this is, Sarah said gently. This is just life. Complicated, beautiful, dangerous, wonderful life. Earth isn't a death world. It's a living world. A world where life has found a way to thrive in every possible environment. But the danger, the lethality, the constant threat of death. That's true everywhere, Dr. Kepler added. Life is dangerous, but it's also magnificent. Earth's creatures aren't monsters, they're survivors. They've learned to live in one of the most dynamic, challenging environments in the galaxy. And they've learned to live together, Rosa continued. Predators and prey, plants and animals, all part of one enormous, complicated ecosystem. It's not about death, it's about life finding a way. Flibble stood quietly for a long moment, his filing cabinet sections no longer rattling. When he spoke, his voice was thoughtful rather than panicked. You know, he said slowly, maybe we've been approaching this all wrong. Maybe instead of a Death World exhibit, we should be calling it a Life World exhibit. Now you're getting it, Sarah said with a smile. But what about the danger? We can't just ignore the fact that these creatures are lethal. We don't ignore it, Tommy replied. We respect it. There's a difference between being afraid of something and being aware of it. Earth taught us to be aware. Aware of what? Of everything, Dr. Kepler said simply. Of the weather, of the animals, of the plants, of each other. Earth doesn't forgive carelessness, but it rewards attention. And that's why you're not afraid, Flibble said, understanding beginning to dawn in his voice. You're not afraid because you're paying attention. Exactly, Sarah agreed. Fear is what happens when you don't understand something. But once you understand it, you can work with it instead of against it. As they walked back toward the zoo's main entrance, word of the humans' successful tour had spread through the staff. Creatures from dozens of species lined their path, staring at the beings who had walked through the Deathworld exhibit and emerged not only unharmed, but apparently energized by the experience. This is going to change everything, Flibble said quietly. If Earth isn't actually a death world, if it's just a very lively world, then our entire understanding of hostile environments needs to be reconsidered. It's not just lively, Rosa corrected. It's educational. Every day on Earth is a lesson in survival, adaptation, and cooperation. We learned to be resilient because we had to be. We learned to be creative because the challenges kept changing. We learned to work together because individually we're actually pretty fragile. Fragile? Flibble's voice rose in disbelief. You're from a world that has traumatized 312 species. How can you be fragile? Because we're not armored, Sarah explained. We're not particularly strong or fast or venomous. We don't have claws or fangs or protective shells. We're basically just clever apes who learn to use tools and work together. But that's what makes you so dangerous, Flibble protested. Your intelligence, your cooperation, your ability to adapt. That's what makes us human, Dr. Kepler corrected. The danger is just a side effect. As they reached the main entrance, they found themselves surrounded by a crowd of beings who had come to see the creatures from the legendary Deathworld. The crowd was maintaining a respectful distance, but their curiosity was obvious. "Are you really from Earth?" asked a being that looked like a cross between a mushroom and a telephone pole. "Born and raised," Tommy replied cheerfully. "Though I've got to say, your planet is lovely, much more peaceful than home." "Why peaceful?" The mushroom telephone pole seemed confused. "But we've had 3 wars in the last century." "Only 3?" Rosa asked. "That's not bad. Earth has had thousands of wars, and we're still going strong." "Thousands?" The crowd took a collective step backward. "Well, we've had a lot of practice at making peace afterwards," Sarah said quickly. "We've gotten quite good at it, actually. Most of our wars these days are fairly small and localized." "Most of them," squeaked a creature that appeared to be made entirely of crystals. "Oh, we still have the occasional big one," Dr. Kepler admitted, "but we've learned to clean up afterwards. It's all part of the learning process." Learning process. The crystal being was now speaking in frequencies that made nearby equipment begin to hum. "Sure," Tommy said. "Every species has to learn how to live with itself. Humans are just thorough learners. We like to explore all the possibilities, including the possibility of mutual destruction." "Especially that one," Sarah replied. "Once you've looked that possibility in the face, everything else seems quite manageable." The crowd was now murmuring among themselves in a symphony of languages, dialects, and communication methods that ranged from traditional speech to bioluminescent patterns to what appeared to be organized static. "They're discussing whether to be terrified or impressed," Flibble translated helpfully. "Why not both?" Rosa suggested with a grin. "Terror and admiration aren't mutually exclusive. We feel both about our own planet most of the time." "You're afraid of your own world?" asked a being that resembled a walking tree with too many eyes. "Respectfully cautious," Dr. Kepler corrected. "Earth has taught us that overconfidence is usually fatal. We've learned to appreciate things that can kill us." "Appreciate them." The tree being's eyes were now blinking in what appeared to be a distress pattern. "Oh yes," Sarah said. "There's something beautiful about perfect predators. They're so efficient. So well designed. You can't help but admire the craftsmanship." "Craftsmanship?" squeaked the crystal being. "You speak of lethal creatures as if they were artwork." "In a way they are," Tommy replied thoughtfully. "Millions of years of evolution, refining and perfecting. Each species is a masterpiece of adaptation." The crowd's murmuring had evolved into something that sounded like a philosophical debate conducted in 47 languages simultaneously. The general theme seemed to be whether the humans were incredibly brave, completely insane, or possibly both. "I think," said Flibble slowly, "that we need to completely redesign our exhibit." "How so?" Sarah asked. "Well, if Earth creatures aren't mindless killing machines, if they're actually artists and performers and neighbors, then we've been presenting them all wrong." "You mean you want to make it less scary?" Rosa asked. "No!" Flibble's filing cabinet sections rattled with sudden excitement. I want to make it more honest. Instead of a horror show, we should make it a celebration, a showcase of the most vibrant, dynamic, creative ecosystem in the galaxy. Now that, Dr. Kepler said with approval, sounds like a much better idea. But we'll need help, Flibble continued. We'll need someone who actually understands these creatures, someone who can teach visitors how to appreciate them rather than just fear them. You want us to stay? Tommy asked, his eyes lighting up with interest. Would you consider it? You could be our Earth consultants, help us redesign the entire exhibit, teach our staff how to properly care for the specimens, maybe even give educational talks. The humans exchanged glances, and Sarah could see the same thought occurring to all of them. This was exactly the kind of opportunity they'd been hoping for when they'd left Earth. We'd need to send word back to Earth, Sarah said. Let them know we're safe and that we've found, well, this. This? Flibble asked. A chance to be ambassadors, Dr. Kepler explained, to show the galaxy that Earth isn't a nightmare, it's a wonder. And maybe, Rosa added with a grin, to learn a few things ourselves. I mean, you've got creatures from all over the galaxy here. That's got to be educational. Educational? The crystal being was still speaking in frequencies that made nearby equipment vibrate. You want to learn from other deadly creatures? Why not? Tommy replied. We've learned from everything else. Might as well learn from alien death machines too. They're not death machines, Flibble protested, then stopped. Well, some of them are, but they're not just death machines. They're complicated. Everything's complicated, Sarah said with a smile. That's what makes life interesting. What followed was the most unusual job interview in galactic history. The humans were asked to demonstrate their qualifications by returning to the exhibit and providing commentary on the various species they encountered. The results were illuminating. Now, this is a saltwater crocodile, Dr. Kepler explained to a group of zoo staff who were watching from what they considered a safe distance. They're apex predators, but they're also devoted parents. The mothers carry their babies to water in their mouths, and they'll protect their young for up to 2 years. The same mouth that can bite through steel? Asked a staff member who appeared to be made entirely of nervous energy. The same mouth, Dr. Kepler confirmed. They have incredible bite control. They can crack an egg without breaking the shell or crush a car without trying. That's impossible, the nervous energy being protested. How can something be both gentle and destructive? Practice, Sarah replied simply. Lots and lots of practice. Most Earth creatures are much more nuanced than their reputations suggest. They moved to the next exhibit, where a Komodo dragon was sunning itself on a rock. The massive lizard regarded the group with the lazy interest of someone who had just finished a large meal. Komodo dragons, Rosa explained, are the largest living lizards on Earth. They can grow up to 10 feet long and weigh over 150 pounds. They're also venomous, intelligent, and excellent swimmers. Venomous? The nervous energy being was now vibrating at frequencies that made nearby glass resonate. Their saliva contains anticoagulants, Dr. Kepler added, but they're also surprisingly social. They play with objects, recognize their keepers, and some even enjoy being petted. Petted? The entire staff group took a collective step backward. Well, by people who know what they're doing, Tommy clarified. You wouldn't want to just walk up and start scratching behind the ears. They're not dogs. What are dogs? Asked Flibble, consulting his notes. The research data mentions them frequently, but the descriptions are confusing. Dogs are... Sarah paused, trying to figure out how to explain dogs to beings who had never encountered them. They're wolves that decided to be friends with humans. We domesticated them, or maybe they domesticated us. It's hard to tell. You domesticated wolves? The nervous energy being was now speaking in frequencies that only dolphins could hear. Well, not exactly, Dr. Kepler corrected. We formed a partnership. They help us hunt. We share our food and shelter. It's worked out pretty well for both species. You have partnerships with Earth predators? Flibble's filing cabinet sections were rattling again. Oh, lots of them, Rosa said cheerfully. Dogs, cats, horses, cattle, chickens, bees. We've got working relationships with dozens of species. Cats are predators too. The staff group was now huddled together like a support group. Extremely efficient ones, Tommy replied. They're perfect hunting machines, small, fast, quiet, and absolutely lethal. They can kill prey much larger than themselves. And you let them live in your homes. They're excellent roommates, Sarah explained. They keep the vermin population under control. They're affectionate when they want to be, and they're very good at relaxing. We've learned a lot about stress management from cats. Stress management? Flibble was now taking notes at a furious pace. Earth predators teach stress management. Among other things, Dr. Kepler agreed. Cats are masters of living in the moment. They can go from completely relaxed to fully alert in seconds, then back to relaxed just as quickly. It's very efficient. And dogs teach loyalty, courage, and the importance of pack cooperation, Rosa added. Horses teach us about strength, grace, and the value of partnership. Cattle teach us about patience and the importance of community. You learn from all of them. The nervous energy being was now vibrating so fast it was becoming difficult to see. We learn from everything, Sarah said simply. That's what intelligence is for. Every creature on Earth has something to teach if you're willing to listen. The tour continued, with the humans providing commentary on each species they encountered. With each explanation, the staff group became more fascinated and less terrified. The creatures they had seen as mindless killing machines were revealed to be complex, intelligent, and often surprisingly gentle beings, with their own personalities, preferences, and social structures. This changes everything, Flibble said as they completed the circuit. If Earth creatures are teachers rather than monsters, then our entire approach needs to be reconsidered. They're both, Dr. Kepler corrected. They're dangerous and educational. The danger is part of the education. How do you mean? Well, when you know that something can kill you, you pay attention to it, Tommy explained. You learn its habits, its moods, its preferences. You develop respect. And respect leads to understanding, Rosa continued. Understanding leads to cooperation. Cooperation leads to partnership. Partnership with apex predators, Sarah concluded. It's worked out pretty well for us. The staff group was now looking at the exhibit with completely different eyes. Instead of a collection of horrors, they were seeing a community of teachers, each one offering lessons in survival, adaptation, and the art of living well in a challenging world. We're going to need to retrain everyone, Flibble said, his voice filled with excitement rather than panic. Guards, keepers, tour guides, even the cleaning staff. Everyone needs to understand that these aren't monsters. They're neighbors, Dr. Kepler suggested. Neighbors, Flibble agreed. Dangerous, beautiful, intelligent neighbors. And we're going to need to redesign the entire visitor experience, added a staff member who appeared to be made of crystallized enthusiasm. Instead of trying to terrify people, we should be trying to educate them. Educational tours, suggested another staff member, with proper safety protocols, of course, but focused on learning rather than fear. Interactive exhibits, chimed in a third, where visitors can observe natural behaviors, feeding patterns, social interactions. Ambassador programs, Flibble was now speaking entirely in exclamation points, where Earth creatures can demonstrate their intelligence and personality. The humans watched with amusement as the zoo staff transformed from a group of terrified guards into an enthusiastic educational planning committee. Ideas flew back and forth in multiple languages, with concepts being refined, expanded, and occasionally rejected in favor of even more ambitious proposals. I think, Sarah said quietly to her companions, that we're going to like working here. Definitely, Dr. Kepler agreed. This is exactly the kind of challenge I was hoping for. Plus, Rosa added with a grin, We'll get to see how Earth creatures adapt to alien environments. That's going to be fascinating from a biological perspective. And we'll get to meet creatures from other worlds, Tommy said, his eyes bright with anticipation. Imagine the stories we'll be able to tell when we get back to Earth. If we get back to Earth, Sarah corrected. This might be too interesting to leave. As the planning session continued around them, the humans began to realize that they had stumbled into something much larger than a simple zoo exhibit. They had found a chance to redefine how the galaxy viewed both Earth and its inhabitants. Instead of being seen as a death world populated by mindless monsters, Earth could be recognized as a vibrant, dynamic ecosystem populated by intelligent, adaptable, and surprisingly cooperative creatures. You know what the best part is, Dr. Kepler said, as they watched a group of zoo staff members excitedly discussing the possibility of installing climbing structures for the primates. What's that? Sarah asked. We're not just changing how they see Earth creatures, he replied. We're changing how they see the concept of danger itself. Instead of something to be feared and avoided, danger becomes something to be respected and learned from. That's very philosophical, Rosa observed, and probably very healthy for a galaxy that seems to have been living in fear of anything that might be even slightly hazardous. Fear is expensive, Tommy added. It takes a lot of energy to be afraid all the time. Much more efficient to be respectfully aware. And much more fun, Sarah concluded. Fear limits your options. Respect opens up possibilities. But, as if to demonstrate this point, the great white shark they had encountered earlier appeared at the viewing window of the oceanic exhibit. It hung motionless in the water, studying the animated discussion taking place among the staff members. It's curious, Dr. Kepler observed. It wants to know what all the excitement is about. Should we introduce it to the staff? Rosa asked. I think they're ready for a more personal interaction. Let's see, Sarah said, approaching the viewing window. The shark immediately focused on her, its black eyes following her movements with intelligent interest. Hey there, she said softly, placing her hand flat against the glass. Sorry about all the noise. We're just planning some improvements to your home. The shark tilted its head, a gesture that seemed to transcend species barriers. Then it did something that made everyone in the area stop talking and stare. It placed its nose against the glass, directly opposite Sarah's hand. Incredible, Flibble breathed. It's trying to make contact. It's succeeding, Sarah corrected, her voice filled with wonder. Look at that intelligence. It knows we're here, it knows we're aware of it, and it's choosing to interact. But it's a shark, protested the nervous energy being. Sharks are supposed to be mindless eating machines. This one isn't, Dr. Kepler said, studying the creature with professional fascination. This one is curious, intelligent, and apparently capable of interspecies communication. Communication. The nervous energy being was now vibrating so fast it was creating small whirlwinds in the air. Watch, Tommy said, moving to stand beside Sarah. The shark's attention shifted to him, and he raised his hand to match Sarah's gesture. The shark responded by moving slightly to the side, positioning itself so that its nose was equidistant from both hands. It's acknowledging both of us, Tommy observed. It recognizes that we're separate individuals. Social intelligence, Rosa added, joining the group at the viewing window. The shark adjusted its position again, this time forming a triangle with its nose and the 3 human hands. It's including everyone, Dr. Kepler said, his voice filled with awe. It's not just recognizing us as individuals, it's recognizing us as a group, and it wants to be part of the group, Sarah said softly. It's not trying to hunt us or threaten us, it's trying to connect with us. The shark hung in the water for several more minutes, maintaining its position in the triangle formation. Then, as if satisfied with the interaction, it performed a graceful roll and swam away, leaving the humans and the staff staring at the empty water in amazement. That was, Flibble began, then stopped. I don't have words for what that was. That was communication, Dr. Kepler said simply. Cross-species, cross-cultural, cross-evolutionary communication, and it was initiated by the shark. The predator reached out to us, Rosa added, not to hunt, not to threaten, but to connect. Because it recognized something in us, Tommy concluded. Something that transcended the fact that we're different species from different worlds. What did it recognize? Asked the nervous energy being, its vibrations now settling into a more stable pattern. Intelligence, Sarah replied. Curiosity. The desire to understand and be understood. The same things that drove us to leave Earth and explore the galaxy. The staff group was now looking at the exhibit with expressions that ranged from wonder to something approaching reverence. The realization that they had been caring for not just dangerous animals, but intelligent beings capable of complex thought and emotion had transformed their entire perspective. We're going to need to completely restructure our approach, Flibble said, his voice filled with determination. This isn't just about education anymore. This is about diplomatic relations. Diplomatic relations. The crystallized enthusiasm being was now sparkling with ideas. You mean like ambassadors? Exactly like ambassadors, Dr. Kepler agreed. These creatures aren't just representatives of their species, they're representatives of their entire world. They're Earth's first galactic diplomats. And they're doing a better job than most official diplomats, Rosa observed with a grin. No politics, no hidden agendas, just honest communication. Plus, Tommy added, they're a lot more interesting than most politicians. When's the last time you saw a senator perform an underwater ballet? The laughter that followed was the sound of barriers breaking down, of fear transforming into fascination, of the impossible becoming merely improbable. So, Flibble said once the laughter had died down, shall we make this official? Will you help us transform the Deathworld Pavilion into something better? Something honest, Sarah corrected. Something that shows Earth as it really is. Dangerous, beautiful, complex, and utterly alive. Something that shows the galaxy that danger and intelligence aren't mutually exclusive, Dr. Kepler added. That the most dangerous worlds might also be the most educational. No, something that proves that the best way to deal with fear is to replace it with understanding, Rosa concluded, and something that demonstrates that the universe is a lot more interesting when you stop being afraid of it, Tommy finished. Then it's decided, Flibble announced, his filing cabinet sections rattling with excitement. Welcome to the Zephyrian Prime Zoological Gardens Earth Division. You have a galaxy to educate. And, Sarah said, looking back at the oceanic exhibit where the shark had reappeared and was performing what appeared to be a victory lap, it looks like we're going to have some very enthusiastic teaching assistants. The transformation of the Deathworld Pavilion began immediately. Over the following weeks, the humans worked with the zoo staff to redesign every aspect of the exhibit. Warning signs were replaced with educational placards. Barriers were modified to allow for better observation while maintaining safety. Interactive displays were installed to help visitors understand the complex behaviors and social structures of Earth's creatures. But the most significant change was in the attitudes of the staff themselves. The creatures they had once feared were now revealed to be fascinating individuals with distinct personalities, preferences, and abilities. The grizzly bear, it turned out, was an excellent problem solver who enjoyed puzzle games. The cassowary was a devoted parent who had been pining for companionship. The great white shark was a social creature who had been lonely in its solitary tank. It's remarkable, Flibble said, as they watched a group of visitors interacting with the exhibits. Fear was making us blind to everything interesting about these creatures. Fear does that, Sarah agreed. It narrows your focus to just the dangerous aspects, but once you get past the fear, you can see the whole picture. And the whole picture is magnificent, Dr. Kepler added. watching a family of visitors as they observed the wolf pack's complex social dynamics. "Look at those children. They're not afraid, they're fascinated." "Children are natural scientists," Rosa observed. "They want to understand how everything works." "Adults are natural scientists too," Tommy corrected. "They just forget sometimes. All it takes is the right teacher to remind them." As if to demonstrate this point, the great white shark appeared at the viewing window and began its now famous underwater ballet. The crowd of visitors pressed closer, their initial nervousness quickly replaced by wonder and delight. "Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished beings," announced the tour guide, a creature that looked like a cross between a praying mantis and a public speaker, "you are witnessing one of the most remarkable examples of interspecies communication in the galaxy. This great white shark, whom we call Ambassador, has learned to recognize and respond to different types of visitors." "Ambassador?" asked a visitor who appeared to be made of liquid metal. "The shark has a name. All of our Earth creatures have names," the guide replied. "Ambassador was named by the human consultants who helped us redesign this exhibit. According to Dr. Kepler, great whites are highly intelligent creatures capable of complex social behavior." "But I thought sharks were mindless eating machines," protested another visitor. "A common misconception," the guide explained. "Sharks are actually among the most sophisticated predators in Earth's oceans. They have excellent problem-solving abilities, complex social structures, and as you can see, a remarkable capacity for artistic expression." Ambassador seemed to be enjoying the attention, performing an elaborate series of rolls and spirals that drew gasps of admiration from the crowd. When the performance ended, the shark positioned itself at the viewing window and appeared to bow, a gesture that the audience instinctively understood and applauded. "Incredible," breathed a visitor who looked like a small purple cloud. "It's actually performing for us." "It's communicating," the guide corrected. "This is Ambassador's way of saying hello, of acknowledging your presence and welcoming you to its home." "Its home?" The purple cloud visitor seemed confused. "But this is a zoo exhibit." "It's also Ambassador's home," the guide explained. "The human consultants helped us understand that Earth creatures don't just live in environments, they make them their own. Ambassador has personalized this space, arranged it to suit its preferences, and made it truly its own." "The shark is redecorating?" asked a visitor who appeared to be made of crystallized music. "In a way, yes," the guide replied. "Ambassador has moved rocks, rearranged coral, and even learned to operate some of the environmental controls. It's not just living in this space, it's actively managing it." The crowd was now looking at the exhibit with completely different eyes. Instead of seeing a dangerous predator confined in a tank, they were seeing an intelligent being managing its own living space with the skill of a professional habitat designer. "This is revolutionary," whispered a visitor who looked like a walking equation. "We've been thinking about zoo exhibits all wrong. They're not just displays, they're homes." "Exactly," said a familiar voice. Sarah stepped up to join the tour group, her presence immediately recognized by several visitors who had heard about the humans who had survived the Deathworld exhibit. "Dr. Mitchell," the purple cloud visitor exclaimed, "you're one of the humans from the Deathworld." "I'm one of the humans from Earth," Sarah corrected gently. "And I'm here to tell you that Earth isn't a death world, it's a life world. A world where life has learned to thrive in every possible environment." "But the danger," protested the liquid metal visitor. "The reports describe creatures that can kill you in dozens of different ways." "That's true," Sarah agreed, "but they can also teach you dozens of different ways to live. Every creature on Earth is a master of survival, adaptation, and making the most of challenging circumstances." "Like Ambassador?" asked the crystallized music visitor. "Exactly like Ambassador," Sarah replied. "Sharks have been perfecting their survival strategies for over 400 million years. They've survived multiple extinction events, adapted to changing oceans, and learned to thrive in environments that would kill most other species." And now Ambassador is teaching us, the guide added. Every day, we learn something new about intelligence, adaptation, and the art of living well in a challenging environment. "Madame, what has Ambassador taught you?" asked the walking equation visitor. "Patience," Sarah replied. "Efficiency, the importance of understanding your environment, the value of calculated risks, and the fact that even the most dangerous creatures can be gentle when they choose to be." As if summoned by the conversation, Ambassador appeared at the viewing window again, this time carrying what appeared to be a piece of coral arranged in a decorative pattern. The shark presented its creation to the crowd, holding it steady so that everyone could see the intricate arrangement. "Ambassador is showing us its artwork," the guide explained. "It's been creating these coral sculptures for several weeks now. Each one is different, each one is beautiful, and each one demonstrates a level of aesthetic sense that we never imagined possible in a predator." "A predator that creates art," whispered the purple cloud visitor. That's impossible." "Nothing's impossible," Dr. Kepler said, joining the group. "It's just unexpected. Earth has taught us that intelligence and creativity can emerge in the most surprising forms." "But why?" asked the liquid metal visitor. "Why would a predator create art?" "Why do any of us create art?" Tommy asked, appearing beside Dr. Kepler. "Because we can. Because it's beautiful. Because it makes us happy. Because it's a way of expressing who we are." "An ambassador is expressing who it is," Rosa added, completing the human quartet. "A creature that is dangerous, yes, but also intelligent, creative, and capable of beauty. Just like everything else on Earth," Sarah concluded. "Dangerous and beautiful, lethal and loving, simple and complex, all at the same time." The tour group stood in silent wonder, watching as Ambassador carefully arranged its coral sculpture with the concentration of a master artist. When the shark was satisfied with its creation, it stepped back, or rather swam back, and regarded its work with obvious pride. "Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished beings," the guide announced, "you have just witnessed something that has never been documented in galactic history, an apex predator creating art for the pure joy of creation, and sharing it with beings from other worlds," Dr. Kepler added. "Ambassador isn't just creating art, it's engaging in cultural exchange." Cultural exchange. The walking equation visitors' symbols were rearranging themselves in patterns that suggested intense calculation. "You mean the shark is participating in diplomacy?" "The very best kind of diplomacy," Sarah replied. "Honest, creative, and based on mutual respect rather than fear." "And it's working," Rosa observed, watching as more visitors gathered around the oceanic exhibit. "Look at those faces. Nobody's afraid anymore. They're fascinated." "Fear is expensive," Tommy said, repeating his earlier observation. "Fascination is profitable. It opens minds, creates connections, and makes the universe a more interesting place. And a safer place," Dr. Kepler added. "When you understand something, you can work with it instead of against it." As the weeks passed, the transformed Deathworld Pavilion, now renamed the Earth Life Pavilion, became the most popular attraction in the galaxy. Visitors came from across known space to see the creatures from the legendary Deathworld, but they left with something completely different, an understanding that danger and beauty, lethality and gentleness could coexist in the same being. The success of the exhibit led to other changes throughout the zoo. Creatures from other worlds that had been classified as dangerous were reassessed, and many were found to be misunderstood rather than malevolent. The zoo's mission evolved from containment and display to education and cultural exchange. "You know what the best part is?" Flibble said, as they watched a group of young visitors participating in a predator appreciation workshop. "We're not just teaching them about Earth creatures. We're teaching them about the nature of life itself." "Life is complicated," Sarah agreed, "and that's what makes it beautiful. Plus," Dr. Kepler added with a grin, "it's given us the best job in the galaxy. How many people can say they're professional ambassadors for an entire planet?" "And how many people get to work with colleagues like Ambassador?" Rosa asked, waving at the great white shark who was performing its daily ballet for a group of delighted visitors. "Speaking of Ambassador," Tommy said, "I think it's trying to tell us something." They turned to see the shark at the viewing window, holding what appeared to be a new creation, a complex arrangement of coral, shells, and seaweed that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. "It's beautiful," whispered Flibble. "But what does it mean?" "I think," Sarah said slowly, studying the intricate patterns, "it's a map." "A map of what?" Dr. Kepler asked. "Of the galaxy," Sarah replied. "Look at the arrangement. Those spiral patterns, the way the light catches the shells. Ambassador is showing us the galaxy as it sees it. But how would a shark know about galactic geography?" Rosa asked. "The same way it knows about art," Tommy replied, "by being a lot more intelligent than we originally thought." As they watched, Ambassador carefully positioned its creation so that the light from the exhibit's artificial sun created complex patterns on the walls of the tank. The patterns seemed to shift and dance, creating what appeared to be a three-dimensional map of local space. "Incredible!" Flibble breathed. "It's not just showing us the galaxy, it's showing us our place in it." "And its place in it," Dr. Kepler added. "Ambassador isn't just a creature from Earth anymore, it's a citizen of the galaxy. A citizen who's teaching us all how to be better neighbors," Sarah concluded. As the day drew to a close, the humans gathered at the oceanic exhibit for their daily check-in with Ambassador. The shark appeared at the viewing window, its latest creation still visible in the background. "So," Sarah said, placing her hand against the glass, "what do you think of your new home?" Ambassador tilted its head, a gesture that had become its signature response to direct questions. Then it performed a slow, graceful roll that seemed to express contentment and satisfaction. "I think that's a yes," Dr. Kepler interpreted. "Definitely a yes," Rosa agreed. "And I think," Tommy added, "that Ambassador has just given us our next challenge." "What's that?" Sarah asked. "Teaching the galaxy that intelligence isn't just about being like us," Tommy replied. "It's about being the best version of whatever you are." "And Ambassador," Dr. Kepler concluded, "is definitely the best version of what a shark can be." As they prepared to leave for the day, Ambassador performed one final display, a complex sequence of movements that seemed to incorporate elements from all of its previous performances, creating something entirely new and beautiful. "Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished beings," announced the evening tour guide to a group of late visitors, "you are witnessing the premiere of Ambassador's latest masterpiece. This performance, which we call Symphony in Blue, represents months of artistic development and demonstrates the remarkable creative capacity of Earth's ocean predators." "It's dancing," whispered a visitor who appeared to be made of liquid starlight. "The shark is actually dancing." "Ambassador is doing more than dancing," the guide replied. "Ambassador is showing us what it means to be truly alive, dangerous enough to survive, intelligent enough to thrive, and creative enough to make the universe a more beautiful place. And that," Sarah said quietly to her companions, "is the real lesson of Earth." "What's that?" Dr. Kepler asked. "That life isn't about being safe," Sarah replied. "It's about being magnificent." The months that followed transformed not just the zoo, but the entire galactic understanding of what it meant to be alive. The Earthlife Pavilion became a pilgrimage site for beings from across the galaxy, each one coming to witness the impossible. Creatures that were simultaneously deadly and beautiful, dangerous and gentle, primitive and sophisticated. But perhaps the most remarkable transformation was in the creatures themselves. No longer treated as mindless monsters, they began to reveal abilities that had been hidden by fear and misunderstanding. The grizzly bear, whom they had named Professor, developed a talent for solving complex puzzles and began teaching problem-solving workshops for visiting students. The cassowary, christened dancer, created elaborate choreographed performances that drew audiences from across the sector. Even the plants began to respond differently, with the Venus flytraps, dubbed the chorus, apparently learning to coordinate their movements in response to different types of music. "It's as if they were waiting," Flibble observed, as they watched Professor demonstrate the solution to a particularly challenging spatial reasoning puzzle. "Waiting for someone to recognize their intelligence." "Intelligence is like any other ability," Dr. Kepler replied. "It grows stronger with use and recognition." For months these creatures were treated as mindless beasts, so they had no reason to demonstrate their cognitive abilities. But now they're showing off, Rosa added with a grin, watching as Professor carefully arranged a series of colored blocks in a pattern that would have challenged most graduate students. "They're proud of being smart." "They should be," Tommy said. "Look at that concentration. Professor is enjoying the mental challenge." As if aware of the conversation, Professor completed the puzzle and then turned to face the observation window. The bear's expression was unmistakably one of satisfaction and pride, and when the gathered visitors applauded, Professor actually took a bow. "Remarkable!" exclaimed a visitor who appeared to be made of crystallized mathematics. "The creature understands applause." "Professor understands a lot more than applause," Sarah replied. "Bears are among the most intelligent mammals on Earth. They have excellent memories, complex problem-solving abilities, and sophisticated social structures." "Social structures?" asked another visitor, this one resembling a mobile library. "You mean they live in communities?" "Not exactly communities," Dr. Kepler explained, "but they have complex relationships with other bears, elaborate mating rituals, and very sophisticated parenting behaviors. Bear mothers are among the most dedicated parents in the animal kingdom." "And the most protective," Rosa added. "The phrase, 'don't mess with Mama Bear,' exists for a reason." As if summoned by the conversation, Professor approached the viewing window and pressed one massive paw against the glass. The gesture was clearly an invitation for interaction. "Professor wants to say hello," Tommy interpreted, moving to place his hand opposite the bear's paw. "Should that be allowed?" asked the crystallized mathematics visitor nervously. "I mean, it's still a predator." "So are we," Sarah pointed out. "Humans are persistence hunters. We're designed to chase down prey over long distances until it collapses from exhaustion. You're predators." The mobile library visitors' books began fluttering in what appeared to be distress. "But you're so civilized." "Being civilized and being predatory aren't mutually exclusive," Dr. Kepler explained. "Civilization is just a more sophisticated form of hunting and gathering. We hunt for knowledge, we gather resources, we form alliances to improve our survival chances." "But you don't eat other sapient beings," protested the mobile library visitor. "No," Tommy agreed. "We've evolved past that necessity. But the underlying drives are still there. The need to explore, to compete, to overcome challenges, to protect our families and communities. And those same drives," Rosa added, "are what allowed us to leave our home planet and explore the galaxy. Predatory instincts channeled into exploration and discovery." Professor seemed to be following the conversation with interest, his intelligent eyes moving from speaker to speaker. When Rosa finished, the bear made a sound that was somewhere between a grunt and a chuff, a noise that sounded remarkably like agreement. "Did Professor just agree with you?" asked the crystallized mathematics visitor. "Bears are excellent listeners," Sarah replied. "They're also quite opinionated. Professor has very definite views about proper puzzle construction, acceptable food quality, and visitor behavior. The bear has opinions." The mobile library visitors' books were now fluttering so rapidly they were creating small air currents. "Oh yes," Dr. Kepler confirmed. Professor has made it clear that he prefers puzzles with geometric patterns over random configurations, that he finds classical music more conducive to problem-solving than modern compositions, and that he absolutely refuses to perform for groups larger than 30 individuals. Performance anxiety, Tommy explained helpfully, quite common among intelligent species. You're describing the bear as if it were a person, the crystallized mathematics visitor exclaimed. Not a person, Sarah corrected, but definitely an individual with preferences, personality and agency. Just because Professor isn't human doesn't mean he isn't a thinking, feeling being. Agency? The mobile library visitor had gone very still. You mean the ability to make independent choices? Exactly, Rosa replied. Professor chooses when to engage with visitors, what puzzles to attempt, and how to express himself. Nobody forces him to perform. He does it because he enjoys the mental stimulation and the social interaction. As if to demonstrate this point, Professor stepped back from the viewing window and returned to his puzzle collection. He selected a particularly complex three-dimensional maze and began working on it with the focused concentration of someone who genuinely enjoyed intellectual challenges. Incredible, whispered the mobile library visitor. We've been thinking about zoo animals all wrong. They're not exhibits, they're residents. Residents with jobs, Tommy corrected. Professor is our chief puzzle consultant. His feedback has helped us design better educational tools for visitors from species with different cognitive structures. The bear is a consultant. The crystallized mathematics visitor was now speaking in frequencies that made nearby computing equipment begin to hum. An extremely valuable one, Dr. Kepler confirmed. Professor's problem-solving approach is completely different from most sapient species. He thinks in 3 dimensions simultaneously, considers multiple solution paths in parallel, and has an intuitive understanding of spatial relationships that puts most engineers to shame. Plus, Sarah added with a grin, he's great at debugging our educational software. Bears have a natural talent for finding flaws in logical systems. Debugging? Both visitors spoke in unison, their voices reaching harmonics that suggested imminent system overload. Professor Beta tests our interactive displays, Rosa explained. If a puzzle is poorly designed, unfairly difficult, or has logical inconsistencies, Professor will demonstrate the flaws by systematically breaking the system in creative ways. The bear is a quality assurance specialist? The mobile library visitor asked weakly. Among other things, Tommy replied. Professor also serves as our consultant on environmental design, our expert on terrestrial mammal behavior, and our unofficial ambassador to visiting dignitaries. Ambassador? The crystallized mathematics visitor was now vibrating at frequencies that were making nearby crystals resonate sympathetically. Last month, Professor personally welcomed the diplomatic corps from the Andromeda Exchange, Sarah explained. He demonstrated advanced problem-solving, performed a brief juggling routine with fruit, and then shared his lunch with the delegation's children. The bear shared food with alien children. The mobile library visitor's books were now completely still, as if the concept had overloaded his processing systems. Professor loves children, Dr. Kepler confirmed. All children, regardless of species. He has an instinctive understanding that young beings are learning and growing, and he's extremely gentle and patient with them. But it's a predator, the crystallized mathematics visitor protested. So are most parents, Rosa pointed out. Predatory instincts often translate into protective instincts when it comes to young beings. Professor sees children as something to be nurtured and taught, not threatened. As if to demonstrate this point, a group of young visitors approached the exhibit. Professor immediately abandoned his puzzle and moved to the viewing window, his entire demeanor shifting from focused concentration to gentle attentiveness. "Watch this," Tommy said quietly. Professor began a slow, deliberate series of movements that were clearly designed to entertain the young visitors. He juggled small objects, performed simple tricks with his paws, and made exaggerated facial expressions that drew delighted laughter from the children. "He's performing for them," the mobile library visitor breathed. "He's playing with them," Sarah corrected. "This is how bears interact with cubs, gentle, playful, educational. Professor is treating these children the same way he would treat young bears. Cross-species parenting," Dr. Kepler observed. "Professor has extended his natural nurturing instincts to include children from other worlds. That's..." The crystallized mathematics visitor paused, his symbols rearranging themselves in complex patterns. "That's beautiful." "That's Earth," Tommy replied simply. "Complex, surprising, and absolutely committed to the continuation of life in all its forms." The young visitors spent nearly an hour interacting with Professor, who patiently performed tricks, solved puzzles at their request, and even appeared to listen attentively when they told him stories about their own worlds. When they finally left, Professor watched them go with what appeared to be genuine affection. "He'll remember them," Rosa said softly. "Bears have excellent memories for individuals. If those children ever come back, Professor will recognize them immediately." "Even years later?" asked the mobile library visitor. "Especially years later," Dr. Kepler confirmed. "He'll want to see how much they've grown and learned." "That's..." And the crystallized mathematics visitor was now sparkling with what appeared to be tears. "That's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." "And it's completely normal behavior for Earth mammals," Sarah added. "We form long-term relationships. We remember individuals. We care about each other's welfare across species boundaries. Is that why humans were able to integrate so easily with our society?" the mobile library visitor asked. "Because you're naturally inclined toward interspecies cooperation." "Partly," Tommy replied, "but also because we've had a lot of practice. Earth taught us that diversity is strength, that different perspectives solve different problems, and that cooperation is more effective than competition." "Competition is still important," Rosa clarified, "but it works best when it's embedded in a framework of cooperation. We compete to be the best we can be, not to destroy each other." "Like Professor and his puzzles," Dr. Kepler added. "He competes with the challenges we give him, but he cooperates with us in the process of learning and growing." As the day progressed, more visitors arrived to witness the marvels of the Earth Life Pavilion. Each group left with a fundamentally altered understanding of what it meant to be alive, intelligent, and part of a larger galactic community. "You know what I find most remarkable?" Flibble said as they watched the last tour group of the day. 6 months ago, beings were lining up to see the most dangerous exhibit in the galaxy. Now they're lining up to learn from the wisest teachers in known space. "Same creatures," Sarah pointed out, "same abilities. The only thing that changed was our willingness to see them clearly." "Fear is like a dirty window," Dr. Kepler observed. "It distorts everything you're trying to see. Clean the window and suddenly everything becomes clear." "And beautiful," Rosa added, watching as Ambassador performed its evening dance for a group of philosophy students who were taking detailed notes. "Speaking of beautiful," Tommy said, "I think we should tell them about the other project." "Other project?" Flibble's filing cabinet sections perked up with interest. "We've been in communication with Earth," Sarah explained. "The success of the pavilion has attracted attention from the Global Ecological Council. They want to establish formal diplomatic relations," Dr. Kepler continued, "not just with individual species, but with the galactic community as a whole. Diplomatic relations." Flibble was now speaking entirely in capital letters again, though this time from excitement rather than panic. "You mean official contact? Cultural exchange programs," Rosa explained. "Scientific cooperation. Shared research initiatives. The whole diplomatic package. Plus," Tommy added with a grin, "they want to send more animals." "More animals." Flibble's filing cabinet sections began rattling with what appeared to be anticipatory delight. "What kind of animals?" "Dolphins," Sarah replied. Octopi, ravens, African grey parrots, border collies, some of Earth's most intelligent non-human species. They want to establish a formal Earth embassy, Dr. Kepler explained, with both human and non-human representatives. A multi-species diplomatic corps. Flibble was now vibrating at frequencies that were making nearby equipment respond sympathetically. That's unprecedented. That's Earth, Rosa said with a smile. We've never been much for precedent. The proposal is being reviewed by the Galactic Council, Tommy continued, but given the success of the pavilion, approval seems likely. Which means, Sarah concluded, that this is just the beginning. As if to punctuate her words, Ambassador appeared at the Oceanic exhibit window, carrying what appeared to be an even more elaborate creation than its previous artworks. This sculpture incorporated elements from multiple Earth ecosystems: coral from the reefs, shells from the beaches, driftwood from the forests, and what appeared to be metallic elements that could only have come from the zoo's infrastructure. Ambassador has been making that for weeks, Dr. Kepler observed. It's the most complex piece yet. What do you think it represents? Flibble asked. I think, Sarah said slowly, studying the intricate patterns and interconnected elements. It represents home. Home? Rosa looked more closely at the sculpture. You mean Earth? No, Sarah replied. I mean here, this place, these relationships, this community we've all built together. Ambassador is showing us that home isn't a place, Tommy added, understanding dawning in his voice. It's a connection between beings who choose to understand each other instead of fear each other, Dr. Kepler concluded. Ambassador positioned its creation carefully in the center of the tank, where the lighting would show it to best advantage. Then the great shark performed a slow, graceful circle around its artwork, as if blessing it or claiming it as its own. Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished beings, announced the evening tour guide to a group of late visitors, you are witnessing the completion of Ambassador's greatest work, a sculpture that represents the transformation of fear into understanding, of isolation into community, of the impossible into the inevitable. What's it called? Asked a visitor who appeared to be made of living music. Ambassador calls it Symphony of Connection, the guide replied. And it serves as a reminder that the most dangerous things in the universe, intelligence, creativity, the capacity for change, are also the most beautiful and the most necessary, Sarah added quietly, watching as Ambassador settled into position beside its creation, clearly satisfied with its work. For what? Dr. Kepler asked. For making the universe a place worth living in, Sarah replied. As the zoo closed for the evening and the last visitors departed, the humans gathered for their traditional end-of-day reflection. Around them, the Earth creatures settled into their evening routines. Professor organizing his puzzle collection, Dancer preening her magnificent feathers, the chorus harmonizing in their subtle plant language, and Ambassador floating peacefully beside its latest masterpiece. So, Flibble said, consulting his daily reports, visitor satisfaction is at an all-time high, educational impact assessments are through the roof, and we've received formal requests from 47 different species to establish similar programs on their homeworlds. Plus, Tommy added, we've got 3 different universities wanting to establish xenobiology research programs here, and at least 6 species have requested permission to send their children for Earth-style education. Woo, Earth-style education? Rosa laughed. What does that even mean? Learning to see danger as opportunity, Dr. Kepler suggested. Understanding that intelligence comes in many forms, recognizing that cooperation and competition can coexist. Learning that fear is optional, Sarah added, but respect is essential. And learning that the universe is much more interesting when you stop being afraid of it, Tommy concluded. Speaking of which, Flibble said, his filing cabinet sections rustling with what appeared to be nervous excitement, I have some news. Good news or bad news? Rosa asked. I'm not sure, Flibble admitted. The Galactic Council has approved Earth's application for full diplomatic status. That's wonderful, Dr. Kepler exclaimed. Why aren't you sure if it's good news? Because, Flibble continued, they've also requested that Earth consider establishing similar exhibits on 300 other worlds. 300? Sarah's eyes widened. They want us to terraform 300 planets? Not terraform, Flibble clarified. Educate. They want Earth creatures and human consultants to help transform their understanding of what life can be. That's... Tommy paused, calculating. That's basically asking us to become the galaxy's teachers. And therapists, Rosa added, and diplomatic corps and cultural ambassadors. And artists, Dr. Kepler concluded, looking at Ambassador's sculpture. Don't forget artists. So, Sarah said slowly, what do we tell them? The humans exchanged glances, and in that moment, they all knew what their answer would be. We tell them, Tommy said with a grin, that Earth accepts the challenge. We tell them, Rosa added, that we're honored to serve as ambassadors for our world and all the life it contains. We tell them, Dr. Kepler continued, that we're ready to help them discover what we've learned, that the universe is full of teachers if you're willing to be students. And we tell them, Sarah concluded, that the real lesson of Earth isn't about surviving in a dangerous universe. It's about making a dangerous universe worth surviving in. As if in response to their decision, Ambassador performed one final dance of the day, its movements graceful and purposeful in the dim evening light. Around the pavilion, other Earth creatures seemed to sense the significance of the moment. Professor raised himself up on his hind legs in what appeared to be a gesture of approval. Dancer performed a brief but elegant bow, and the chorus rustled in harmonious agreement. I think, Flibble said softly, watching the creature's spontaneous celebration, that they approve of our decision. They should, Sarah replied. After all, they're going to be doing most of the actual teaching. And what will they teach? Flibble asked. The same thing they've been teaching us, Dr. Kepler replied, that intelligence and danger aren't opposites. They're partners in the dance of life. That beauty and lethality can coexist in the same being, Rosa added. That respect is more powerful than fear, Tommy continued, and that the best way to survive in a dangerous universe, Sarah concluded, is to make it a little less dangerous for everyone else. As the lights dimmed and the pavilion settled into its night cycle, Ambassador positioned itself beside its sculpture one final time. In the soft glow of the artificial moonlight, the great shark looked exactly like what it had always been. A perfect fusion of grace and power, beauty and danger, ancient wisdom and infinite possibility. The universe would never be the same, but for the first time in galactic history, that was exactly what everyone wanted.